In tonight's talk, we're going to kind of follow on or add on to the last talk we had, which was 3-4 weeks ago, where we were talking about budgets. And almost for that whole time, I just talked about different categories to have in your budget, different things to think of, reasons to have the categories for a budget. And we started out by giving reasons for having a budget. That we should know the state of our flocks. We don't know flocks here, but we have goods and things that we should know the condition of them. And the way to know is to have a budget, and the way to really know is to use envelope budgeting. So I'm going to just start off assuming that we know some things about having a budget, and then talk particularly about using envelopes. And then I might, along the way, talk about modifications to it with the technologies that we have today and all that. There's temptations to skip certain elements of envelope budgeting. And if you've been using envelope budgeting for a long time, there are parts of it that you don't have to do. If it's totally foreign to you, you probably should put the whole paycheck divided into envelopes for a little while until you understand how the system works. And then if you're well disciplined, the system itself gives you discipline. And it disciplines you, and you learn discipline at the same time. It's one of those things that works that way. So most of the time tonight I'm going to be just spent on talking about different different ways to set up basically an envelope budget system. And then some objections to it even. Some people, somebody came to me and said, I was telling my mom about this, and she said, you really going to keep all your money in one place? Well, that's, if you have all your cash in your envelopes, that is something to consider. You don't just, you don't carry it around in your purse everywhere you go, So, but unless all your cash is $5.35. But anyway. So we'll talk about some things some questions that come up, like, do you really do that or do you do that? And I will just go ahead and move into, I probably just along the way we'll be talking about the way that I do it, and it's not just because I do it is not the right way. It's just the way that me and my wife have figured out how to work an envelope system and take advantage of today's technologies like online payments and we don't have direct deposit, but some of you are going to have direct deposits and direct, mortgage payments are taken directly from your checking account and whatever type of thing like that. So let's just say we're saying that you have kind of a budget laid out. You have taken all those categories and figured out how much you want to give, or some of it is how much you have to give. Those would be like fixed expenses. You can't say to the bank, well, it just doesn't fit my budget to pay you the whole house payment. We're going to pay everything but $50 of it every month. They're not going to go for that. Okay? There's certain expenses that are fixed expenses. And then there's others that are flexible. The financial term would be discretionary. Is that right? Discretionary spending. I was reading some and I thought discretionary, what is that? That's flexible. That's like the groceries. It's not like the grocery store says you have to pay us this much money. Otherwise, well, they do. You have to pay whatever, $2.89 for a dozen eggs, but not for you can decide what you're going to buy, how much you're going to buy, and that type of thing. So you have flexible expenses. Most households have fixed expenses and flexible expenses. Many households also have debt. Okay? I'm not going to say that a mortgage, a car payment necessarily might not be considered debt. Those could be considered fixed expenses. But if you get into a budget, and so you can get to the place where a car payment is not a fixed expense. It's a discretionary expense. You have enough money, and you say, I like that car, and I'm going to have that car. Now, your car insurance, that's a fixed expense. So we have fixed expenses. Those, we have to pay that amount. Normally, those come monthly. We have flexible expenses or discretionary spending, and those are the areas where we say, well, I normally spend this much here, and then we add up all the expenses, and then we add up all the incomes, and are the expenses a bit more than the incomes? If the expenses are more than the incomes, which if you're not used to being in a budget or anything like that, it's very easy for expenses to be more than your income. If you are just like scared to death that you will spend too much money, maybe the money you spend is way less than what comes in, and you're just a miser. You don't even, you won't buy anything. So you add up your expenses, figure out your income, and then make adjustments. Normally we have to make adjustments within our flexible income, within our discretionary spending, so that our budget, the amount of money that we spend or allocate each month, equals the amount that comes in. And when I say allocate, I'm saying you're putting it towards some type of a savings or something. So you're not really spending it, but you're putting it in a certain spot, and it's not there with your monthly expenses. If you have debt, then you have to figure out how to satisfy your creditors, however many you have, monthly. And we won't go over a debt reduction plan, but generally use some type of snowball plan, whether it's a highest interest rate first or smallest balance first, and then take all the money they put toward that and put it toward the next one until you eradicate the debt. Then I suggest that people figure out their expenses, their budget on a monthly plan, because most of your fixed expenses come as monthly bills, your house bill or whatever, or easily split into monthly bills, like your car insurance. Many times people can pay car insurance 6 months at a time. But you don't pay your car insurance 14 weeks at a time. It's 6 months at a time. So you just divide that amount by 6. That's the amount that you need each month. Once you get through 6 months, you'll have enough to pay the car insurance. As I was studying and looking at this, I noticed if you have the same amount of money comes in for every check, you could set your budget up by each pay period. Okay? Either way, you're going to do some type of a multiply and divide problem to know what your monthly expenses are or what your monthly income is. Unless you get paid by the month, you're going to have to do, if you get paid by the week, you're going to take your weekly pay, multiply by 52, divide by 12 to figure out what your monthly income is. Okay? If you want to figure out your budget by pay period, then you'd take your monthly expenses, multiply by 12, and divide by the number of pay periods in a year. Is that confusing? If you get paid every other week, you got 26 pay periods in a year. So you can say my monthly expenses are this, multiply times 12, divide by 26. This is how much I need to, okay, my mortgage is, let's make it easy, $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year, divided by 26. This is how much out of every check needs to go in the mortgage envelope or stay in the bank to be able to pay the mortgage when they take it out of your checking account. So if you're new into this, or you're like, this is really confusing, go by the month. That's the type of expenses that you have. If it makes sense, and it's not really that hard to multiply by 12, divide by the number of pay periods, you could go by the paycheck. But that only works if your paychecks are the same amount. I'm looking at people that work in construction or something like that. You get a check. One check is $300, another check is $3,000, and all of that. If you're doing that, then you have to figure percentages. You have to figure your monthly expenses. These are my monthly expenses. This is what I normally safely can say I'm going to make each month. And then figure, okay, tithe is 10%. That's the easy one. So 10% of every check is going to the tithe envelope. The house payment ends up being, 16% or more or less, whatever. That percent of every check needs to go in that envelope. So if you're on variable, every check is variable, you have to use a percentage system. Okay, so you've decided the budget. Then, this is the big secret, envelope budgeting is really, really tricky. It's life-changing, though. You get an envelope. You get an envelope, and you write on the envelope, you write the name of the category in your budget for an envelope for every category in your budget. Now, I'm going to, as I said before, I'm going to take it with the most basic. And you can, as you gain discipline in a budget system, you can remove certain elements of it. But I know some people that are very disciplined with their money, and they still put the cash in the envelope for their mortgage, and then take the cash out of the envelope for the mortgage to the bank, and then they write the check. Okay? And that's perfectly fine. There's an element of discipline there, and all that's helpful. But so you take an envelope for every category of expenses. One thing envelopes are nice. One thing we do, and this is not a huge difference. We use one of those expandable envelope things. So there's like 20 categories in there, and we have each one is labeled. A lot of times, a lot of writing ends up on the outside of your envelope. Different things come up, and you write yourself a note about that category. If you're using an expanding thing, then you have to use some type of sticky notes or something in there. But for various reasons, you'll write a note to yourself on this envelope or whatever, and that will come up. Also, so on the envelope, also, if it's the same amount of money with each paycheck, you can just write on the envelope how much money goes into that envelope for each paycheck. Figure it out once, it's going to be the same. You get a raise, then you kind of refigure your percentages or divvy it out again or something. If you're on percentages, you can't put the amount there, but you put on the envelope, it says tithe 10%. It says, it says car insurance 2.3%. Or 0.023, and take the check, multiply times that, that's how much money goes in that envelope. Okay, so you write that out, figure it out, and then when it comes time to get paid, you sit there with your calculator, and boom, boom, you get really good at multiplying times decimals. If you have debt, you're going to have an envelope for every creditor. And you have predetermined, you've decided, I'm paying this creditor $50 a month. What percentage of your check is that? Or, if it's $50 every check. Or I'm paying this creditor $10 every check. Keep them all happy, pay the minimum, and even if you can only pay the minimum, as soon as you pay off the minimum on pay off the smallest one, all of that money from that one doesn't go into the grocery envelope. It goes toward the next debt until all the debt is gone. Then you can redistribute your money, or you can just start putting all that money that was for debt into savings because you've been living just fine while you were paying off debt. But debt, you shouldn't make a budget. If you have debt, you shouldn't make a budget and say, well, any money that's left over from the budget we'll put toward the debt. It's not going to happen. The budget if you have debt, the debt has to be built into the budget. You have to have an envelope for it. You have to put money toward that debt with every check that you make. So you create the envelopes, and every check, you put cash into them. Then you only spend cash. You don't use your debit card. You don't use a credit card. You don't use any electronic things like that. You only spend cash. You say, well, my mortgage, they have to have a check. Okay, you take the cash out of the envelopes, take it to the bank, write the check. Okay. Now this is classic envelopes, but you only spend cash, and then you will never overspend. You will never overspend. You will never come home and say, honey, I bought this, and she says, we don't have enough money for that. If you're only spending, you can't overspend. It's very simple, right? You cannot overspend if you only have cash. You go to the register, they say it's $35, you have $25. You can't sign up for the store credit card at the moment because you're not going to do that. You can't overspend, though. You say, okay, I guess I can't get that. I'll come back next week when I have $5 more in my envelope or whatever. So if you only spend cash, you cannot overspend. So this idea is groundbreaking. It is the way we always used to do things. Okay? But almost nobody does it. Almost nobody in the whole world does this. Even huge businesses don't work this way. Right, Mr. Goff? That's why they have to have, they're spinning, they're out collecting, doing, well, I don't know the terminology, but they're raising billions and millions of dollars so that they can go spend our money and hopefully become profitable with that, even more profitable. And my shares maybe will be worth more, but maybe they won't be worth more. So not even businesses. I mean, some do, okay? But the world is built off of running on credit. And that is boasting yourself of tomorrow. I will be able to pay this back tomorrow. Boast not thyself of tomorrow. Know not what a day will bring forth. Okay? But using envelopes, or as you understand it, modifying it some, but living under the principle of an envelope system, it works. It helps to discipline you. It helps to discipline you with your spending. If you're like, oh, I can spend that, and then you get to the end of the month, it's, whoa, you spent more than what I thought we did. Okay? Actually using cash helps you pay less than you would if you use a credit card or a debit card. And so I would say, especially if you're tight, if you have other debt and all that, don't use the credit card. I can get miles for it. Now you can hear a lot of people who are doing well off with their finances that get miles and perks and all of that because they buy their groceries with a credit card. That's fine. I'm not condemning that. But if you're using the credit card to buy groceries and you're buying $300 worth of groceries when you should be buying $250 worth of groceries, one of the reasons you're doing that is because you're swiping it on the card rather than bringing the $250 in cash. You walk up to the register and it gets to be $249. You say the rest goes back in the store. Or, no, let's take that back because we really need this. Okay? Now, so it helps to discipline you. In a certain sense, it can be an emergency fund. Okay, if you read or anything about management, you should have an emergency fund. Well, that's something I would like to work toward. The classic emergency fund is something like 3 or 6 months worth of expenses. Okay? Well, I don't have that, honestly. I know you're just going to all walk out. I don't have that. But I do have enough. If the refrigerator breaks down, I have enough to pay for the refrigerator. It's ready. Okay? Now, if the refrigerator, the furnace, the oven, if they all break down at the same time, I'm calling the insurance agent. Okay? I don't have enough for all of those things to break down at once. But because I put money aside into the appliances envelope, I have enough money for something to break down. And so if I have a household emergency or something like that, I have money to cover those expenses. So envelopes can be used as an emergency fund. If you have to, if it's a huge emergency, you can write notes on an envelope. You have something that is truly an emergency. It's not that the TV broke, okay? Which most of you probably don't have a TV. But not that some luxury that you happen to be blessed with breaks and you must replace it right now, and you really don't have to. But if something is a real emergency, you can go into those envelopes, take $50 out of this one and say, appliance, whatever, appliances owes car insurance $50. You can use that. You're going to be a long time getting it back in place, but that's why it's called an emergency. And if you have emergencies every month, you need to adjust the budget. Okay? So, and something I should say, well, also then, with an envelope system, your budget becomes tangible. You see it. It's not just out there. It's not a balance on a checkbook or something, represented by a piece of plastic or whatever. You can see it. You can say, oh, the budget's doing well, or the budget's a little thin. Either way, you can see it. You know it. It's not just a kind of a. I know numbers are real, but it's not just an abstract number. It's pieces of paper, And if you don't believe in that, it's actual coins or something. All of us with our Sacagaweas. All right. So it's tangible. You don't have overdraft charges. Okay. Now, if you are if you write the check without depositing the money to back the check up, you can't. Okay, you have it's time to write the check for the mortgage, and you have all the money in your envelopes, and you don't get the money from the envelopes into the bank, then you're going to have an overdraft charge. Okay, and so that's where if you're well disciplined or fairly well disciplined, I leave anything that I'm going to write a check for, I leave in the bank. I don't put it into an envelope. But I never use the ATM card. Never. I don't go to the ATM and get some cash out. I never do. I only write checks for actual expenses. In fact, I don't even know if I write checks anymore. You just use the online checking or whatever. I have about 5 checks a month that get paid, and that's it. So you don't have overdraft charges because you know where your money is. You don't. We talked about this. You won't miss payments. You won't waste. You have less wasteful spending. When you use the cash, it's like if it's like, oh, I'll just swipe it. I deserve it. Right? It's been a rough day. I got chewed out at work. I need something on the way home. I'll just put it on the card. There's money in the bank. Okay. But if it's cash, there's less of that takes place if you're spending cash out of your envelopes. So it can be tough to get everybody in the household on board with this, but normally there's just 2 in the household that have to agree on this, so it doesn't have to be so tough. Okay, but it can be. It can be like if you're a person of habit, and we all are. If you're a young couple, get on this right away, even if you have no money. Even your $3, divide it into pennies and get them in the right places. Okay, but really, because if you can get into this as a habit, you don't have to break a habit later on. And money is very close to our hearts as people, and it's a very emotional thing. It is. I don't know why. It's just the way we're created. It's our human nature. Now, I will say, here's something that's a difficulty. Getting started. You're saying, I haven't been doing this. Getting started can be difficult and confusing. Okay. Now, if you're doing okay, I shouldn't say this. We ought to know where our money is. A wise person, a man knows the condition of his flocks. He knows where his money is and what it is. And as a steward of the things that God has given us, we should know where our money is. Okay? It should be working for us, not us, just getting by with it. But you say, well, how do I do this? Okay, it can be confusing. For example, you go to Walmart. You go to Walmart, you have one receipt. But that receipt, you bought things on that receipt that is groceries, household supplies, a little bit of clothing, and maybe a gift. So there you got money from 4 different envelopes on this one receipt. Okay? You brought money out of one envelope because you were going grocery shopping, but you saw the great deal and Christmas is coming up, and there's plenty of money in the gift envelope or something, so you get that. Well, you get back, moving the money around can be confusing. Okay? but it's way better to be a little confusing and a little like, oh, where does that go, than to be, we got the money. And then at the end of the month, you don't have the money. Overdraft charge, so you didn't have the money, now you're out $36 more or whatever the fee is. And then anyway, we got stories about that. And everybody does. Almost, at least. I think probably everybody does. Okay, just for my curiosity. Is there anybody? Okay, let's just put it on the brag side. Has anybody never been incurred an overdraft charge? Never. Good. Mostly all other younger people. Okay? Listen to me. Do this. You can raise your hand when you're Mr. Goss's age and not have paid an overdraft charge. Okay. But a lot of us have paid them, right, Anthony? And they are a hard taskmaster. The place you wrote the check for charges you. The bank charges you, and then you're. I mean, that's like a whole envelope, like 2 categories in fines, fees, and you're just, oh man. So, if you're learning this system, or if you find that you're overspending, only take cash with you that you need. Okay, say, I have enough money. I'm going to go out to lunch. There's $100 in the restaurant envelope. Don't bring the $100 for lunch. You know, somebody else will be there. They didn't have any money. Oh, brother, I can handle it for you. Okay, and so you just spent $67 on lunch because you had 100, and now there's only 33 left. If you bring 10, you're going to spend $10 on lunch. And if you bring 5, you can get a sandwich at McDonald's. No fries, no drink, just a sandwich. And it won't even taste good. So only take the cash with, so you only use cash, but then only take the cash that you're going to spend. You're going to the grocery store, you've got a list, you can kind of estimate. If I get everything on the list, it's going to cost $60. Bring 60. If you're like, I always remember other stuff that I really need, bring 70. But don't bring the whole, whatever it is, the whole monthly allotment for groceries. Or, when you get it all, you go to the grocery store with all of it, and you buy a month's worth of groceries at one time. When I was growing up, we went to Eagle in Michigan City. Remember Eagle in Michigan City? We had 2 carts going through the grocery store. The kids loved 2 carts. We'd come up to the $197 or something back then. Probably be $350 now. And that was all the groceries for the month, except for our fresh vegetables or something like that. We would get that each week. So only take the cash you need. Don't be afraid to make adjustments. Okay? So you have to, the envelope system, you need it to give you discipline. But if you set it up, and after the first month you can tell, oh wow, I forgot about how much gas costs. You're going to have to make adjustments. Don't say, well, I guess I only drive for 12 days out of the month. You know, I'm going to be walking the rest of the month. Well, that's an absurd one that we would make the adjustment for, or we would go ahead and spend the money for. Don't just go ahead and spend the money. You've got to make an adjustment. It all has to come from the same pool of money. So, especially when you're starting, don't be afraid to make adjustments. Talk together with your spouse. Okay, we're going to have to. We're spending a lot more here. Okay, can we spend less? No, there's just no way to get around it. We have to spend that much money. Then we need to make an adjustment. We have to spend less somewhere else, something like that. So when you're starting, don't be afraid to make adjustments. Don't make them every day of the month. Like, oh, we need this. I'm going to have to adjust the budget. Oh, we're just adjusting. Don't lie to yourself. You're not just adjusting the budget. But after a month, you need to make an adjustment, make it. Then the next month, and be aware of, oh, this was an odd charge. Yes, we spent more on that, but that was weird because we don't normally do that. Then you don't have to you shouldn't be changing your budget like 13 months in a row. Okay? But don't be afraid, to change the budget if you set it up wrong. We're human beings. We forget things. But having the budget and only spending what's in the envelope will show you what you forgot. Show you where you didn't have the money, what you didn't account for. Try to reduce your bills. Okay? Discretionary spending. I have to have a cell phone. Okay? I know every year that goes by, you really do have to have a cell phone. Everybody has to have a cell phone, right? I mean, you have to. Nobody can get a hold of you if you don't have a cell phone. Especially with all the technologies we have today. Pretty soon you won't need a cell phone. People just, speak into the sky, and the Google network will just hear you and relay the message to you. Anyway. Okay, so let's say you do have to have a cell phone. What does it need to cost a month? I'm looking into switching my cell phone service. I found a place that I can get unlimited minutes and texts, and I send about 5 texts a month. Unless I get into an extended conversation, which is the most ridiculous thing in the world. Why don't you just say, hello? It's a lot easier just to talk. But anyway, but unlimited for $25 a month. Okay? Yep, I'll talk to you about that. Yeah. So, unlimited text and talk for $25 a month. Right now I'm paying more than that. I'm not poor. I can afford to pay what I'm paying right now. But why? I can use that money for something else. I can, do I need data? Some of you probably need data. You're driving around, you're a salesman job, or you're taking pictures for Mr. Snyder, you got to find that house. You need a GPS or something. Or do you need data? You could just spend $60 once and own a GPS. Then you have 5 devices clamped on the front of your car. Okay? I understand I'm not against technological advances. I like them too. But evaluate what you're spending, especially if your budget is tight, if your envelopes are, bottoming out every month. Evaluate. Utilities. Say, I got to heat my house. Sure you do. Do you have to heat it with natural gas? Okay? Do you? Some of you, yes. We don't want Sylvia out there chopping wood for the wood burner in the house. Okay? Some of you, you're going to use natural gas or whatever. But a lot of people, I don't. But you can burn wood. I understand that you get 3 heats when you burn with wood. You get the heat for chopping the wood, right? You get the heat for carrying the wood into the house, and you get the heat for carrying the ashes out of the house. So, anyway, cell phones, contracts, you go off contract, you think it would be cheaper, but they're always running promotion. It's normally cheaper to be on contract, okay? Whatever. Or pay-as-you-go monthly thing, shopping even, okay? I'm supposed to stop. We just went to Sam's last night. I pay to be a member of Sam's. When I renewed, they gave me a $20 e-gift card. So for a year, I paid $25. I don't spend very much there at all. But I save over $25 a year by buying certain things there that are way more expensive if I buy it at the grocery store. Okay? So I would just, even that, you say, well, I don't spend a lot of money. And if you don't buy a lot of groceries, maybe, I'm not trying to say everybody go get a membership at Costco or at Sam's or something like that. But think about it. How much are you spending on groceries? You can look right online at their prices. If you have, I don't know, well, the one thing for us actually that is dog food. Okay? Dog food from there costs way less than if I'm at the grocery store. And we only have a 30-pound dog. We really saved the money when we had 2 labs and a beagle. I mean, that's a lot of food going through there. And we saved the money by buying it there rather than buying it at Walmart even. It's the sister company. So those things are some important things to do. Last thing I would say is, when you do it, stick with it. Stick with it. Don't give up. Okay? It's one of the most, there's probably another word or maybe a better word, but it's one of the most liberating things for you to do is to live on a budget with envelopes. Okay? Guys, how many times have you stopped and gotten something and thought, I hope she doesn't find out about this? Right? Okay. If it's in the budget, if you have your own personal envelope, you have the Tony envelope, it gets 45 cents a month. After 6 months, you can buy that package of bubble gum and not feel guilty about it. Okay. But really, if the money is allocated, if it's there to spend, God gives us good things to enjoy. Okay? Enjoy it. And don't feel guilty over it. But if it's like, if you don't know where the money is, it's just like we have a lot of money, you feel bad. Should I get it? I probably shouldn't. Get yelled at by the boss. I want it. And then you feel then you get it and you don't feel any better about it. You feel worse because then you like your wife wants to get something and you got to say, well, we probably shouldn't. Well, we should have enough money, shouldn't we? Well, I don't know. We better play it safe. Liar. You just didn't play it safe when you bought that on the way home. I'm preaching to myself. I know all the fast food deals going on right now. So anyway, so stick with it. Stick with your budget. Something, and we were supposed to be done 5 minutes ago, right, Rick? Sorry. One last thing. When I had it written down, but I didn't say it. One of the things, if you're close to tax return season, and your budget is you don't have big bills or debt or anything like that, if you can use your tax return to stuff your envelopes to start off with, that just makes it really easy to get into the flow of things. If you're getting paid weekly and you've got monthly expenses and you say, well, okay, every week I have to put this in here. Well, you only have 1/4 or 27%, or no, actually less, like 23% of your house mortgage money is in the house mortgage, envelope, and the bill comes due. It's hard. That's what I meant when I said it's hard to get started in an envelope system. So, but you should still do it. And just borrow, pay back for about 3 months, and they'll all be in place, and everything will be smooth. All right, so this is very practical. I didn't open my Bible once. We quoted a verse or two. But this is where the rubber meets the road with that. Next week, we'll talk about some things beyond that have to do with our finances as Christians, and then we'll be done with it. And if you need to know anything else, you need to buy Mr. Olson's book, Money by the Book.